Hello everyone, I'm Alan, also known as McLaren 2009, and today I'm back playing Stormworks Build and Rescue. I've attempted to stream this last Friday and also on Monday. Both streams failed. I started having like weird, inexplicable just network issues. Just my computer was not having it. So I'm going to try again, and hopefully it works out better this time. Alright, so a little bit of backstory into what started with this whole project. I made this ship, and it was one of the first things... It was one of the first creations I ever put on the workshop. It is the same dimensions, or comparable dimensions, to the real frigate, the USS Constitution, which is the oldest ship still at sea. It is not the oldest ship in existence, it's just the oldest one that still goes to sea. The HMS Victory is older, but it's permanently in dry dock. So, I got inspired that I wanted to try and build a sailing ship, even though they're not really... You can't use them in Stormworks. They don't do anything. So, this is one of the oldest surviving workshop creations that I've ever put onto the Steam Workshop. Like, this thing is so old and dated that we go over here, and that's right, that's a new development. Hello. Thank you for the follow. Welcome to the stream. Ron R2D2. Alright, so this is quite literally my oldest surviving workshop creation. If it's not the oldest, it's one of the oldest. Like, you go back to like the very last page that still has Stormworks vehicles on it, you'll find this. I wasn't even using modular engines yet. It still has the old gearboxes that aren't in the game anymore. And basically, there's not a whole lot that's particularly special about this ship. In fact, you go right here, and this doesn't even have an automatic transmission. I got the game yesterday. I've had this game for way too long. Except I only have approximately 1,300 hours in it, or a little under 1,400. But I've done a lot in this game. It's a very interesting thing, to say the least. Originally, I used it mostly for the whole simulated Coast Guard thing, like build a boat, go out and rescue people, build a helicopter, fly them back to places. But over time, I kinda started doing it more as just a vehicle sandbox. Those commands that you're typing in, basically those are... I'll update them in games where I play with the death counter is in games that I can die in. I actually can die in this game, so there is a potential to add to the death counter. The derailment counter, it's possible in Stormworks because there are trains, and I've built quite a few of them, but they don't derail properly, but all the same, it is entirely possible to cause a derailment. And then the last one, that's just, I did something stupid. Usually I update it myself, but viewers can update it as well. And back on the subject of this specific vehicle, this is before I learned how to make an automatic transmission. So this thing isn't even stabilized in any way, shape, or form. We have these large diesel engines, which they work and they do their job pretty well, but let me show you the problem. We turn on the fuel pumps, so that's these right here. Press page up, you'll see that those are getting fuel going to the engines. Alright, easy day. Well, in theory, that's all you need, right? No. You press the start, nothing happens. Why does nothing happen? Because because the engine doesn't have throttle. It doesn't... I didn't even know he was that old. Like I said, this predates when I made my first automatic transmission. Hello, welcome to the stream. So yeah, this predates when I made my first automatic transmission. So in order to start this ship, I need to add enough throttle to about 0.2 should work. Now I can start the engine. Alright, so now we got the engines running. Let's go back topside and get this thing moving. The other problem with this ship is it is extremely slow. There are other issues with this. Like, for instance, this is the gun deck. This ship was made before the weapons update came out. The weapons was like a distant pipe dream that was just never going to happen. So, you'll notice that my gun deck here has cannons on it, or at least it has what looks like cannons. Well, you might be wondering, what on earth do those do? So, we open up the gun ports. We slide the carriages out, or slide the cradle out. And it does the same thing top and bottom. So, now you're probably wondering, well, the cannons are ready to fire, so what's going to happen when we press the fire button? Well, this was stupid. But it'll be a good way to look at what's in the cannons. This is before the weapons update, but those are flares. I want to say it launches red flares. So, let's go fire off some flares real quick. Basically, I want to show off this ship because this specific ship is why I actually started working on a ship again. Because I spawned this in a multiplayer game to show it to a friend that was kind of interested in it. And we couldn't start it. So we had to turn on infinite electricity. So I had to go back in and figure out what the hell happened to this thing. Well, it turns out that at some point the electricity or electrical connections were removed from these and from these things. There are batteries up here in the masts that allow the mast to extend, but it's not really important. Okay, I don't know what's going on over there. But bottom line is, none of the buttons on the deck worked. So we couldn't start the engines, we couldn't make it move. So after we got done with our multiplayer game, I went back in and found out that, oh, I forgot to connect all of the electrical systems, or I somehow disconnected the electrical systems. Alright, cool. Alright, let's go full throttle. And I don't actually have a speedometer in this thing, so I have no way of knowing how fast we're going. But we're actually moving at a pretty decent speed. Alright, let's... Okay. So... this ship isn't bad by any stretch of the imagination. It might not look the best. Oh, and I forgot to fire off the flares. Let's go deal with that real quick. So... fire. And we won't bother with the left side just yet. But the important thing is, this is a very simple ship. It has all of my, like, older systems that I don't really use a whole lot. Like, you go back in here, and this is kind of like the radio room, if you will. It has a TACAN system, which is tactical air navigation. Basically, it allows this to be used as a radio navigation station while it's moving. I put a remote control, even though there's nothing remote controlled on this ship. I was literally just putting things in here to just fill space. It has a weather system. It has RGB lights. Oh, this was updated for the snow. Basically, when the Arctic update came out, I made a couple of, like, snowcats and things, and then the weather warning system was pretty old, but I updated it so that if the temperature is below 0, it would also blink snow in addition to the rain. I updated the map station when I found out that when I found out this thing was, like, old and outdated and some of the electrical connections were broken, I went back and I fixed things in here and I updated it on the workshop. So, we take this back to the bench and we go in... no. Something's wrong. Okay, so This is the old version. Basically, I went back and I made a new version. Well, I didn't make a new version. I basically gutted it. I took everything out. All the functional systems are gone. Literally everything was replaced. Let's show what has changed. I added blocks to look like sails. They don't do anything but add weight, but they're still there. So, the cargo hatches are still the same. I haven't done anything with the cranes yet. I really want to put in another crane to raise and lower cargo into the cargo hold, but it's not that big of a deal. I'll get around to it at some point. You'll notice that I've simplified the controls. Now you can just see the throttle, rudder, and a speedometer. We finally have a speedometer. So, good news. Alright, so we go down here. We're on the gun deck. I actually had to change this around because I did not realize that in order to make this a sealed compartment, literally all I had to do was put a hatch frame right there and right there. And this is now a sealed compartment. Like, I had to do this kind of stupid thing with the old version where I really wanted to have the stairs going in alternating directions like this, and I wanted it so that you could run from the top, all the way down to the bottom without having to open a single door. Well, it turns out in Stormworks you can't really do that. Because if you have anything that is open to the air, meaning it's not a sealed space, it just renders water at whatever the sea level is. So you would want to go to the stairs, and then you would get down to about here, and from this point forward would be completely underwater. So, when I encountered that problem, I did what you've seen in the old version of the ship, where I didn't bother having them going in different directions. I had them going in one direction. And basically, you had to have these, like, doorways where you have two ladder wells going down, and then they go to a door right here, and then you gotta come out onto this deck, you go over to a door over here, go down again. Well, I was very happy when I found out that I can make a sealed compartment just using the door frames. I wanted it to be in the wall, but I put the heater right there, so that just wasn't going to work, so we just have to deal with putting the frame right there. I guess if I really wanted to, I could do what I did over here and just detach the heater and put it in the floor, but that could be a thing for another day. We'll get to that. Potentially. But the important thing is, a lot of this has changed. You'll notice that in the old version, there was a door right here. This wasn't here because this was just like an open path up to the top deck. And then you would also notice that the gun port controls were on this wall instead, but I put them on this wall. Not for any particular reason, but the ports work the same, except I replaced it with a key switch. So slide out the guns. And I don't currently have infinite ammo on, so they won't reload, but these are actually now fully functional battle cannons. I need to decide if I want to put in like ammo racks or a magazine that feeds up to the guns. Otherwise, you just have to have it where it's on infinite ammo. And then all you got to do is just press the open the breech button, and then it automatically loads around, close the breech, and fire. But the thing is, all of these guns function. So instead of just being static flare launchers, these are actually working cannons. So when I finally feel this thing is ready to go on the workshop, it will have the search and destroy tag because this ship is armed. But I commented on the doors that are not currently here. You go into the radio room, and you'll notice that it's slightly streamlined, or it looks different, and there's a reason for that. Right now, what it has is, instead of a TACAN system, it has my Secure Integrated Navigation System, which is a GPS map display, more GPS information, an IFF transponder, a TACAN system, a radar display, and also a distress beacon and beacon location system. All of those things rolled into one somewhat intuitive touchscreen system. And instead of a normal radio, I decided to put in my fancy new 100-channel touchscreen radio. Let's put this thing on channel 3 real quick. Key the mic, and boom. It's right there. It works. It does exactly what I need it to do. We still have the same RGB lights, but we switched it up a little bit. The old system, the lights were underneath the gun ports. In here, the lights are not underneath the gun ports. In fact, we put little, they have a name, and I'm drawing a blank as to what they are, but basically they allow water to flow, or they allowed water to go from the deck back into the ocean. It's kind of like a drain, if you will. The old version did not have cargo hatches here. But these specifically have to be this kind of hatch, because this kind of hatch is not sealed. Anytime you use like a pivot to make a door, it's not sealed. It will flood the moment water reaches that level. These, however, are sealed. And we jump down here, and this is the lower deck. This is the middle deck. Although, probably the most important thing to show you would actually be the bottom deck. In the old version of the ship, You'll remember it had a it had large diesel engines. Well, this does not have diesel engines. In fact, I made this into a steamship. I'm doing good. How are you? So, you'll remember from the old one that I showed you at the beginning of the stream that right about here were two large diesel engines that were not modular in any way, shape, or form. So, fast forward to this, and I decided I wanted to make a steamship. Because I hadn't done that yet. I made a steam train that works pretty well, but not a ship. So, you may have noticed when I was giving the tour of the old ship that there was like a wall right about here-ish where you go back up top, but then there's just a barrier right here. And the reason there was a barrier right there is because this was a ballast and a fuel tank, and this was just empty space. Well, it turns out, using steam power, there are a lot of systems that take up a lot of space. So I had to open up the entire deck so that I could have 4 large fireboxes, 4 boilers, and they all get fed into these 2 sets of steam-driven pistons. And it was a pain to learn how to use these things. Like, if you just spawn them in, like you go into the inventory, you select the steam pistons, and you just stick them on the ground, and don't do anything to them, they will not work. And it turns out there's a reason they will not work. And I had to figure it out, because I am not by any means an expert on steam engines. But the thing is, if you just spawn these in and you don't touch them, they are at what is basically called top dead center. So they are all the pistons are in exactly the same position in the rotation cycle. So when you try to push steam into the piston, it just doesn't move. It literally just sits there staring at you. And the way that you correct this is you go into the pistons and you modify them so that you change what starting position they have in the cycle. Just by making these little adjustments so that they're all starting in different parts of the cycle, this engine can move. And by relation, this ship can move. But it's easier to show you how all of this works from up top. And, like I said, I'm very happy with the fact that I was able to make the alternating staircases work for the aft stairwell. It's easy to control this thing from the middle deck up here. Now, on the old one, there was a big medical bay that I didn't really take the time to show around. It was kind of like right here, I want to say. Yeah, because above this is the gun deck. So yeah, there would be a wall right here, and there's a big red cross on the wall, and then right here was kind of like another door, and a birthing space that was like really toned down and simplified. This is a lot more detailed, and quite frankly, it looks a lot better. It turns out you can do wonders by just mixing up like your color palette. Like, I have this kind of like chocolate color for like the wood in the beams of the walls, and then I have like a cream color for the decks, and then I have this other brown color for like wood panels inside at various points in the cabin. So the birthing space did not look like this on the old ship. In fact, it wasn't even bunk beds. It was like rows of just beds lined up and facing each other, looking like a squad bay in the Marine Corps. And then you would go back to this side, and you would have the med bay, which was basically the birthing space, but instead of these beds, it had medical beds, and it was just like a lot of them. Then you would go behind the medical bay, and you would have the battery room, where I basically shoved large batteries up on these platforms. And in case you're wondering what this platform is, this is where the propellers are located. They're inside of this box. But it's easy to control the engine room from here, because this area, you're right above the pistons, so you look in and you can see the pistons. There's a radio, so you can talk to somebody up on the bridge. And this has everything you need to do to control the ship, to make it move. So, let's turn on all air intake, light all the fireboxes, and give that a second. Another change that I made between the old version and this version is that this version, every compartment that I have worked on now has RGB lights. Actually, there is one exception. Well, is it just one exception, or is it two? Let's find out. Okay, it's two exceptions. Okay, so old medical bay was right here and was just haphazardly filled with medical equipment. This is the medical bay now. You go in here, you turn on the lights. Instead of RGB lights, I've personally made it so that on my vehicles, anything that's a medical bay has a white light. It just seems more like you would get better visibility. So it would be more fitting of an operating room to have like the sterile looking like white light. So instead of like a plethora of medical beds, we have 2 medical beds and enough support equipment to revive people, treat wounds, all that fun stuff. There are also working heaters there and there. And we're golden. But the old version did not have a supply closet. So, what do we have? We have a supply closet. Basically, every kind of personal equipment you could ever want. We have diving equipment, we have spear guns, welding torches, more welding torches, a hazmat suit, which it's kind of weird that I included the hazmat suit because we don't have anything radioactive, but it is what it is. And then we have radios, specifically the kinds of things that you would actually use. I didn't just throw in everything to just pad space. I actually picked certain things that you are likely to actually need. So turn that back off, close that up, and you can hear the safety valves popping off, so you know the boilers are at working pressure. So you look at our little console right here. The boilers are sitting at about 150 degrees Celsius, and with safety valves, all of the boilers themselves are staying around 8. I'm not sure what the unit of pressure is in Stormworks, but if I had to guess based on other games, it's probably like bar. Which I still don't know how that translates to like PSI. There's a conversion factor for it, but I don't know it off the top of my head. Sorry. Alright, but the point is, all of the boilers have pressure. Why is 4? What is wrong with 4? Alright, 4 is right here. That is very, very weird. Alright. Not worried about it unless it explodes. Alright, let's go back over to the control console. And let's throttle up. 20 should be good. Alright, we go back downstairs. No, down. We go back down. And look at that! The pistons are moving. Admittedly, the pistons are moving extremely slow. But it doesn't need to move fast. And good news! Sitting down here, we know how fast we're going. I want to try to make an intercom system where you can communicate with the bridge pilot house, radio room, combat information, engine room, engine control room, bilge. I want to try to make like just an intercom system, but haven't gotten around to it yet. Unfortunately, the ship is kinda slow. Like, we go back up top. No. It's still... I mean, if you compare it to the entirely sail, like, wind-driven counterpart, it's actually pretty quick. But if you compare it to any other steam engine or steam ship, it is outrageously slow. Basically, I did a terrible job making that engine. And the thing that I cannot figure out for the life of me is this right here. We go up here, right? Alright, this is going to be a problem. Alright, let's just creep up. Or not. Okay, you know what? We'll do it this way. We will no-clip up there. Or maybe we won't. Alright. We no-clip up here. And these are the exhaust ports. Every other steam engine that I have ever made... I say that, but it's literally like 4 at this point. Every steam engine, or every coal-powered steam engine, spews black smoke out the top. Why does this one not spew black smoke? The truth is, I have no idea. Why did our speed, like, die? Why are we going 3 knots? Alright, let's go... Do I have unlimited fuel on? No. Alright, so let's see if we can do some troubleshooting and see if we can get this thing to work. So we gotta go down here. Alright. We've got pressure. Alright, if we go down here... Pistons are moving. How are we doing on fuel? 51, 51... They're all on 51. That was the purpose behind... It's like that was the whole reason behind building the control room, so that I don't have to come down here into the engine room and light all of the fireboxes themselves. And they're all set to maintain 200 degrees. So they're not getting too hot. We've got pressure, we've got the temperature. Alright, so let's go back up to the middle deck. And we go right here. I'm gonna have to modify this as well, because I found out that I can increase the throttle above 0.4 and it'll still work. But then it does stuff like this and it just decides I'm not feeling it. Alright, so we're up to 0.2. Alright, how about batteries? Okay, we're draining power from the batteries, and the generators aren't putting out anything at all. I truly do not understand steam power in this game. I mean, I don't understand Steam power in real life either, but this game just makes it weird. Like, I have no conceivable way of knowing what I'm doing wrong. Like, where is my Steam going? Okay, this thing could go like 10 knots, yet it's not going 10 knots, it's going 2. Alright, let's take a look at these. Yeah, I truly have no idea what's going on or why. I just wanted to work on my new ship and see if I can get it somewhat closer to being able to go on the workshop, but I'm not sure what's going on or why. Alright, so let's take a look and see what we've got. There are other things that I didn't show off on the old version or the new version. Like on the old one, you'll notice that there is an aft cabin. The cabin's the same on the new version and on the old version. It's just I added some more color to it. Little things like that. But this is going to be like a conference room of sorts, and then we're going to have the captain over here, and like the XO over here. And then I also need to add the weather system to this. But the slightly concerning thing is, why are my steam engines not doing what I want them to do? Like, alright, so we have steam out, steam in, and then we have, honestly, this is probably the problem. My system that I have that's managing this clusterfuck is probably the problem. Because you chase the pipes, you have boiler here, boiler here. It's mirrored on both sides. Boiler 1 and 2 are significantly farther away from the steam pistons. So they have to have additional pumps joining them up to here. And then right in here, this pump gets fed into, or it gets joined with this pump. Actually, where does it join? Does it join? Okay, what do we got? Okay. This is from that boiler right there. This is also why in my older vehicles, I used to color code the pipes so that I would know what is where, so I specifically don't have this problem. But I eventually started to realize that my weird color coordination convention doesn't look very good, so I kind of stopped doing it, and I just made, like, uniform pipe colors. Although I guess a good compromise, instead of making the entire pipe, like, color coordinated, I go, like, every so many blocks and put in, like, a color stripe so that you can identify the pipe. I'm modifying my building conventions in real time. You already know we're in for a wild ride. Alright, so pressure pump down here, and that goes into the condenser. Yeah, that's the condenser. There actually are two condensers in here. That's why there are these two fans. Alright, so then this goes over here. And then all of the steam comes to this junction. You have pump here, going past here. And then it goes up into here. There are variable valves here and here. This variable valve feeds into the condenser. This variable valve feeds into the pistons. This is set to get an absolute value from the throttle valve. Easy day. This is a little bit different. This is set to be on by default, so we have a numerical switch up here that sets it at 1 and 0.1, I want to say. And it's switched when the throttle is applied. So most of the steam goes up into this. Now, the area that I think might be a problem is this pipe right here. The actual feed from the distant boiler where it joins. Now, there is a pump blowing steam hard in this direction, but you'll notice the pump is over here. I should probably have another pump right here. In fact, let's start working on that right now. Alright, right there. Alright, we go over here. That's actually pretty convenient. They're in roughly the same general area. Alright. So, we have a pump. This is kind of why I sort of suck at building engines, because I just end up just throwing parts at it and hoping for the best. There's not really any, like, rhyme or reason behind why I'm doing this. I'm just, like, throwing things at the wall and hoping something sticks. Which is not a particularly good building style. But what I'm thinking is we can go right here, and it doesn't require electricity, but if we go down to the fluid section, there should be a one-way valve. So, it doesn't require electricity, and it only allows the fluid to flow in one direction. So, in theory, the only place that the steam can potentially go is just up to this valve. So, if I'm understanding how the fluids in Stormworks work, by putting this one-way valve right here, there should only be steam going in this direction, alright. Then the other area that we might want to put in one of those valves is right here. And the reason I want to put a valve right here this is the steam out line. So this is the pistons right here. So they're pumping out. Is that a thing too? Okay. We're gonna turn this into like a maze of pipe. But, in theory, if we run off of the concept that fluid is in the pipe, and it just exists in the pipe until it hits, like, a barrier or something that stops it from going in that direction. So, what I'm thinking is, and you can comment on this in the chat if you understand it better. The pumps have input and output. Easy day. Input and output goes in one direction. So, hypothetically, this pump right here is forcing fluid through here and into here. But it's also forcing fluid this way. And that's potentially causing a problem because the only time the fluid hits a barrier is when it hits this pump way back here. So it's potentially shoving the steam all the way back to this pump, and that's proving to be a bit of a problem because this pump is also shoving steam in this direction. And then that steam is coming into here and into here. And then that steam is getting pushed back to here, but it's running into this pump. So in theory, both of the pumps should be going forward and up. But they're currently not going forward and up. They're currently colliding with each other and counteracting each other. So what I'm thinking is, if I go through and I figure in these flow valves, so that now there is a barrier right here saying things only flow in this direction. I'm also adding pumps here and here. We need to go in, and we got it connected to electricity, but we need it connected to always on. Because what I'm thinking is the pump is going to be like my barrier, so that something can't go in the outdoor. So fluid coming from this pump going to this pump, that's probably where the problem is coming from. I'm trying to force two different inputs into this system, and the hope is that by having two inputs into the system, I would have more steam to push the pistons, but it appears that by having them connected, it's kinda like back with the old diesel engines. In fact, let's save our progress real quick, and then I'll pull up the old ship, and I'll show you what I ended up figuring out the hard way. I had thought originally that when you put in the large modular engine, or you put in the large diesel engine, it has two exhaust ports. Well, I kind of figured, well, it has two exhaust ports, so why not just save space and connect the pipes together, and then just have them go out the same exhaust port? Well, it turns out that causes some problems. You lose, like, I'm not sure what specifically you're losing, but the bottom line is you pretty much, like, cut your power in half. So for every engine, it has to have its own separate exhaust port just for that specific pipe. So you can't just save space by feeding these into the same pipe. It won't work. You'll have restricted exhaust flow, and by relation, you'll have less power. Because originally I was trying to just like save space with my color-coded pipes here. I wanted to try to combine them as much as I could. And I found out that pretty much all of my vehicles across the board were extremely slow and extremely weak. And part of it was because I tried combining pipes. And you don't want to do that. But it sometimes seems like you can't combine the exhaust ports, but you can have multiple power pipes. Like, I only have 2 propellers on this ship. And I've only got 2 engines, but they're steam engines. So if I had a diesel engine instead of steam, I could easily have 2 diesel engines connected to just... I could have 2 engines on 1 propeller. So in theory, the idea that I was trying to go for was if I can have multiple diesel engines feeding 1 propeller, why can't I have multiple boilers supplying steam to these pistons? Well, I can, it's just I'm having some weird issues that I do not understand, and now we're trying to brute force this thing live on stream, and it's gonna be a mess. So, the problem, for those of you that just joined in on the stream, the problem that I encountered was I spawned in the ship, I fired up the boilers at the control console here, or I lit the fireboxes, heated up the boilers, and I got pressure. And then I throttled up, and I was able to go about 4 knots. Then, at some point, when I put it up to just under half, so I had 0.4 throttle, my speed was just gone. I was barely doing 1 knot. So then I backed everything down, and then I tried to start it up again, but I could only get to 2 knots, when this thing has a top speed of 10. So, I came back into the editor to try to figure out what's going on, and that was when I came to the conclusion that this intersection right here, where this boiler, or the steam from this boiler is combined with the steam from the distant boiler at the front of the ship. And I started thinking, what if this large pump was forcing steam not just up into here, but it's also forcing steam down this pipe all the way to this pump right here, which is then pushing it back. So the first solution was to open up this right here and put in a large pump right here. Then I started playing with the one-way flow valves, and I started adding them at various points in the input and output pipes. And the reason I did that is I'm trying to make it so that the steam or fluids in general are only going where I want them to go when I want them to go there. I'm thinking I'm running into some problems with having 2 boilers feeding 1 propeller. I don't think I have it set up properly. So what we're currently doing is trying to make it work. Oh wait, no, we don't need to go to the bottom deck. Alright, I gotta fix that. Alright. Steam engines, air intake. Light the firebox. Or turn on the lights. Alright. Alright, take 2. Oh, and then I should have included solar panels because all of the lights are draining electricity, as are all of the pumps. Alright, so I gotta fix that. Alright, they're all at temperature, so they're going to start gaining pressure real soon. But another thing that I got to keep an eye out for is I don't know if I'm using all of my steam. I might actually be able to just go all out and open this 100% and see how fast it goes. But if I learned anything from the painful process of making my steam locomotive, past a certain point, you start bleeding boiler pressure. And that's a bit of a problem. Why are these all exactly identical, but the closest boiler has no pressure? Okay, because the way that I designed this, right? You go down here. Here's boiler 1, 2, 3, and 4. 3 and 4 have have like half the pressure of 1 and 2. Where did it go? Okay, now the condenser's doing something. Both condensers are or both sets of condensers are doing something. So what I'm thinking is maybe throwing in that extra pump might have done something? Alright, well, we know the safety valves work, and they do exactly what I need them to do. Matter of fact, let's just use this deck. Alright, so pistons are moving. That's golden. let's look at this right here. Okay, the steam's not building up in the piston, but the piston is moving. So let's go back topside, or not topside, back to the middle deck, right? Currently going 4 knots at 0.22. So let's go up to 0.35. We're up to 7. Let's go up to 0.4. Alright, it's still not 10, but we're going 8. Now, let's look at our pressure readout. Pressure is stable. So, somehow, I have the ability to increase my throttle setting. Or I have the ability to increase the throttle limiter. Because I'm maintaining boiler pressure. It's not dropping. But now my speed is gone. Like, the pressure's the same, but the speed is just gone. Why is it not doing what I want it to do? Why were we able to go 8 and now we're not? Literally nothing has changed with the engine, yet my speed is just gone. I truly do not understand this game and what it wants from me. I don't know what else I can do. Like, the pistons are still moving. Sort of. Alright, this is the pump for... This is steam. So we go back up here. Alright, now we're back going down to 2 knots again. The boilers are still hot. We still have pressure. But the propellers aren't turning. This is frustrating. And it's just really, really weird because... like, all of the, stats of my boilers, the pistons, all of that stuff. It's all exactly the same. Why are we starting out going 10 and ending going 2 when nothing has changed? We're going in a straight line. There are the propellers like they're supposed to be. Alright. It's not a thing in there, so... Alright, let's increase this to 0.6. Let's go a little bit higher. And then this... Let's go a little bit higher. Rudder's fine. That all's good. Okay, so we fixed the cosmetic missing paint block. Alright, so how does this work? What does it do, and why does it do it?